All right, good morning, ladies and gentlemen. You're listening to WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM out of Hammond, Indiana. And this is the morning call with Tom Dabertin. And we'll be here until 9 o'clock this morning in various capacities. At 8:30 is the Whiting Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce show. But the phone lines are now open, 845-1100. Call in. Have lots to talk about today. We'll talk about snow removal because there are lots of misinformation postings on social media about who's responsible for everything from walkways to and sidewalks to driveways. So we'll talk about that. We'll talk about redistricting because that's a big story that is hitting the news right now, and we'll talk about just about anything else that you want to talk about this morning. I do want to talk about a really phenomenally positive story that came out of Washington yesterday with Michael and Susan Dell. So I want to talk about that because I don't think that's getting enough publicity either. So we'll talk about that as well and anything that you want to talk about. But let's begin with traffic and weather. And traffic overall in Northwest Indiana, we're in great shape. I-65 is in really good shape. 80-94, no problems. The toll road, no problems. Client Avenue, no problems. Getting across the line into Illinois generally looks good right now. Now, last week we kept on talking about problems on the Dan Ryan. The Dan Ryan looks pretty good right now. Actually, all the roads in Chicago look good, with the exception of I-57. There's an accident somewhere northbound, right around Burr Oak and 127th, and that has traffic backed up on I-57 northbound into the city. But other than that, things look quite good right now. So now let's talk about weather with Lynette, because I have a feeling it's going to be a bit of a brutal report.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 22 degrees with highs of 32 and lows of 7. It's going to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and chilly. It's going to have some more snow and flurries this afternoon with little to or no accumulation. Watch for slippery spots. And then later tonight we'll be having a breezy evening, otherwise clearing and frigid. And then tomorrow and Thursday we'll be having highs of 15 and lows of 4. Should be mostly sunny and very cold. And then Friday we'll be having highs of 26 and lows of 22 with increasing clouds and should be very cold.
And just to put things into perspective, in January at some point, I will go down to Florida. And the highs in Florida this week, basically, we're looking at highs somewhere between 83 and 85. So, talk about being in the wrong place at the wrong time. 845-1100 is the number to call. I want to talk about a couple of quick issues. I mentioned Michael and Susan Dell. They're giving $6.25 billion. That's billion dollars to help fund what are being called Trump accounts. These are accounts that are being set up for newborns between now and December 31st, 2028. And every newborn will receive $1,000. That money will be available when they're 18 with interest. It should grow to somewhere around $5,000, which is pretty remarkable over 18 years. But, they claim that generally an investment will double every 7 years. So that makes sense. And it's gotten some coverage, but not the coverage that I think it should. When you go on the internet, when you go on Facebook, for example, there's lots of negative stories out there. But here's something extremely positive, that this couple is willing to help fund these accounts for every child that's born between now and December 31st, 2028. I'm surprised. I saw absolutely nothing from the Roman Catholic Church, for example, which always is promoting the idea of parenting and children. Nothing. There was coverage by ABC News last night, but David Muir basically was too much out of breath to talk much about it. He was too busy to talk about Donald Trump's MRI, which there's no story at all. So those are just some examples of what I think is wrong with this country right now. Here is a very positive story. We should be talking about it. We should be elated that somebody's willing to give that kind of money. But instead, we're mired in talking about things like who's responsible for shoveling sidewalks, okay? So let me just make it clear. The sidewalks that run in front of your business, the sidewalks that run in front of your home, those are basically, you've given easements to the city for public passage. It's still your sidewalk. You're responsible. You have to shovel it. Nobody else. You cannot say it's the city's responsibility. The law is against your claim in that case. It is your property. You're responsible. And in fact, here's the easiest way to prove it. If I fall down on your sidewalk, I can sue you. Your insurance has to pay. So that's how simple it really gets. So if your sidewalk is snow covered and needs to be cleaned, go out and clean it. It's going to be 30 degrees today until this afternoon when the temperatures drop. So you got to get out there and clean it, folks. It's all there is to it. And then people complaining about snow plowing. Look, if you've never plowed snow, and I have, you have no idea what those drivers have to do. Many of them were out there 15 to 20 hours over the weekend plowing snow. People were complaining that they weren't out early enough. They weren't out often enough. They plowed in their cars. They pushed the snow up where they had just cleaned. You know, folks, that's just life. People said, well, there are contraptions called snow gates. Snow gates work to a point, but you still have to be able to push the snow somewhere. So you can't just keep the snow gate down for an entire block because you won't be able to plow. 845-1100 is the number to call, and we've got callers. So let's go to those callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Good morning.
Good
Hey,
morning.
on a lighter side, did you see about that break-in at a liquor store in Chicago?
No, I saw the one about the liquor store out east where the raccoon got drunk.
Yeah. Now, question I want to know about that.
Is that the one you're talking about?
Yeah, he broke in, entered, knocked over the liquor bottles, got drunk, passed out. They took him to bed. He's going to sober up. Now, is that raccoon get charged for breaking and entering and going to have to spend time in raccoon jail or something?
Well, you know that would be up to Mother Nature and raccoon justice, and I'm no expert on raccoon justice, but I thought it was kind of comical that a raccoon, as you said, broke into a liquor store somehow, knocked over some liquor, drank the liquor, got inebriated, and they found him. In fact, they found the raccoon in the bathroom, which was really funny. So the raccoon made his way to the bathroom.
Yeah, and then now, I bet you. I wonder, do raccoons, after they drink all that booze, do they have hangovers like other regular people?
It's a good question. I would think that most animals would be affected, very similar to a human being. I know that I've been told before that you can give your dog beer to help settle them down on the 4th of July, for example. They don't get as inebriated as a human being does, but you can see that they become kind of very calm and very docile. But I don't know about the day after if they get a hangover or not. That I couldn't tell you.
What is your, with all the snow we had last weekend, Friday to Saturday, Saturday to Sunday or Friday to Saturday, and then
A dusting on Monday.
How's your household buddies enjoy the snow in the winter?
You know what? Luna likes it to a point, but Luna doesn't have a lot of long fur. So Luna gets cold pretty quickly. Sophie, on the other hand, Sophie is a great white Pyrenees, and she's got plenty of fur, and she just thought it was the greatest thing on earth. She galloped around that yard for as long as we would allow her to stay out there. She loved it. She had a great time.
I got a little dog that's 8.1 pounds, short legs, and the last 2 days usually when I come home from work, I'll let her out the door and she'll run all the way to the front fence. Well, she goes right to the corner and her feet. she sees all that snow and then her feet get stuck. She turns around and gets back on the porch like, okay, I'm going back in.
You know, the thing that you have to worry about with dogs this time of the year is all the salt that's put down on sidewalks. Now, I'm not suggesting that people not put salt down. It's necessary, but just when you bring your dog back home from a walk, if you take them for a walk, make sure you clean their paws. Make sure that you get the salt out of the pads because that can be very irritating. I mean, imagine, Mike, if you walked on salt, what would happen to your feet? So it's the same thing with a dog.
Oh, yeah.
So, make sure you clean their feet off if there's salt around.
And another thing you brought up about the Dell.
Michael Dell, yes.
Yeah. Well, I know his last name's Dell. $6 million. I was just curious.
It's not million, it's billion. Billion.
billion, yeah. That's great. That's wonderful what he's doing, because that way it'll help out the children and stuff and everything, and it'll kind of do a good thing. But the curiosity gets me is, all these people that win these Powerballs and mega tickets and get these millions and millions. We never hear any of them people ever kind of help and give, because you can't. If I win that Powerball right now, I can never spend that money before I die.
Mike, you bring up a good point. A lot of people will, they'll show them on TV and they'll say, if I win, I'm going to give half the money away to charity. I'm going to give it for good causes. And I've read some articles before that the majority of people who win that money don't do all the good things that they claim they were going to do or set out to do, that instead they get mired down in all kinds of problems and scams, and in many cases they lose most of the money that they receive. And it's really a kind of a sad footnote on winning the lottery.
Because, like me, I'm old enough now. If I'd buy one of them Powerball tickets every once in a while and get big. And if I would win it, I'd make sure all of my children, great children, grandchildren, and all that is taken care of. And then after that, what's left, I'll make sure me and Deb's is enjoying the rest of our life. And then the rest of the money, there's so many good things in Northwest Indiana. And I'll never move out of this region because, well, I got to stay close to Gary, Indiana, because that's where I was born. And I always respect that city. But I would give the rest of the money back to this area to help things,
Well, but it's interesting. It's interesting because people who have done well, and I can think of plenty of them, who have done well off of this area, really haven't been that generous in giving back. There are some people, I'm not going to call them out. I mean, it's up to them, but they've done very well. This is where they grew up, and like you said, you can't take these are your roots. You can't change that, and it's unfortunate that a lot of people, and it's not just Northwest Indiana. It's really nationwide. People a lot of times don't give back to the level that they do. The people that are giving on, Giving Tuesday yesterday are the average Joe, you and I, not these multimillionaire and billionaires that are out there. So, hey, thanks so much for calling, Mike.
Yeah. Hey, one last thing.
Yes.
If I did win, my buddy Dave from Gary that came in that pickup truck and froze my fanny out that July 9th, I would buy him a new truck that has no air conditioning.
All right, there you go. There you go. All right. Hey, thanks so much.
Just one other thing, because we're gonna get some colder days, very cold days. So from now till it gets a little warmer, everybody please check on other people when this weather starts getting cold to make sure everybody's okay.
All right, very good. Thanks. We'll leave it right there. 845-1100. We've got additional callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
From people in the service industry, I've been told that the well-heeled are the poorest tippers, and it's people more average background. They tend to tip better than the wealthy. How about that?
I've heard the same thing. I don't know that that's absolute fact or not, but I've heard that some of the very wealthy, some of the celebrities, for example, that you and I hear about, are not great tippers. That if anything, they'll give an average tip. I was told before, somebody who actually waited on Michael Jordan at one of the casinos said that it wasn't anything out of the ordinary. He demanded a lot, and they got they got a tip, but it wasn't the enormous tip that you and I would think they would be getting. So again, it's up to each individual. I do believe that tips are optional, and so I guess if you have a lot of money, it's still optional for you. But I would think that they'd be a little bit more generous. But I mean, again, Michael Dell and his wife Susan, $6.25 billion, Walt. You would think that would be a big story this time of the year to give people some hope and some positive news. I mean, there's nothing negative about this story. Yet I had a friend of mine post last night on Facebook after I posted it who said, well, there's already some negative comments by Democrats, and sure enough, there were. Two individuals who are reporters said, "Well, yeah, it's been out there though. It's out there." They missed my point. It wasn't that I didn't say wasn't being covered at all. My point was is that it wasn't given the priority. It wasn't given the coverage that it should have been. Once in a while, maybe it'd be nice if the news media covered something positive, and there's nothing negative about the fact that they gave the money. I mean, I guess you could argue, well, why didn't they give 6.5 billion instead of 6.25 billion? But they gave an enormous amount of money. I mean, it's one of the largest donations that's happened in recent history in the United States, and it's being given to newborns for the next 3 years. And well, yeah, okay. So what? They've got a lot of money. They gave the money. Big deal. And that's kind of the nonchalant attitude. And I would think that it would be it's a great story, especially this time of the year. You want those heartwarming stories about people doing good, the idea, the Christmas spirit. No, just didn't happen. And I guess I'm disappointed. And even locally, I had maybe 35 people comment on the story. But there were hundreds of posts yesterday about people complaining about nonsense, about snow plowing and sidewalk clearing, arguing that the city can't tell me to clear the sidewalk because they're responsible. They have to go out and do it. Some woman from Whiting who has opposed just about every program and every initiative to spend money in Whiting, including when they had a referendum for Whiting schools. She's out there and she wants the city to buy Cub Cadets to plow every single sidewalk in the city, right up to people's stairs. I mean, craziness. It's like, okay, let's talk about something good for a change, but instead we want to bitch about whether the snowplow driver really, truly, deliberately plowed the snow, created that snowbank in front of somebody's home. They didn't do it deliberately. They're plowing the streets. People complained all day Saturday they didn't see snowplows, even though it wasn't treacherous out there. I mean, I drove in it, and yes, the plows, the plows had come out, and it had been about 4 hours since they came back, but that's because snowplow drivers, like anybody else, have to take a break, and people just don't let up. Well, the snowplow driver hasn't been down down my street in 4 hours, and then the snowplow driver comes by, and the next thing the same person's complaining, well, I don't like the way they plowed the snow. It's like, okay, can't win.
Well, I think grievance politics is especially a special province of the Democrats. And as far as media coverage, 90% of the media is dominated by Democrats. They're always talking about how they defend. They're the big defenders of democracy. Of course, the foundation of democracy is free speech. And I had an experience with WJOB on Friday last week when Dilo was on. And I called in basically to talk about the Welcome Center and what a great spot it was to take kids, grandkids, and family events and so forth. So he asked me, I don't know much about history like you do. Do you have any comment about historical events going on? I said, yeah, we're going through what we experienced in the 1930s with the rise of Nazi Germany and fascist Italy and imperial Japan. And I said, we're seeing parallels here with Red China and Russia and so forth. And I said, our military is small compared to theirs, and we need to build it up. And all of a sudden, I found myself clicked off. So I flipped on the radio, and I heard Dilo chastising the producer for clicking me off purposely. And why did you do that? That's the question. And she said, because I didn't like what he had to say. And this is very typical of Democrats in general, but particularly these young people. I mean, the surveys are just stunning in that it shows that young lefties, they are very tolerant of violence in politics.
Are you sure that wasn't maybe said tongue-in-cheek, Walt? Because
that was a joke.
Yeah. I don't think it was deliberate to drop you the other day. I think that was said tongue-in-cheek. And by the way, I want to bring up something.
Well, then why was I dropped?
That was a malfunction with the phone.
It was
Ah.
malfunction. So it was a joke, and sometimes jokes, it goes back to something David Chappelle said, which is, um, you know, there are a lot of people that can tell jokes, but there are only a handful of people that can deliver them. Maybe it was just lost in
Yeah,
the
no,
delivery.
Jim was playfully blaming me for hanging up the phone.
Yeah, it wasn't deliberate, Walt.
Well,
But
it's a fact that young people, there's a level of tolerance for violence in politics that's showing up in the surveys and so forth. And just before you went on, there was a lady complaining about Mervan because he voted for a thing in Congress to recognize Charlie Kirk, who was assassinated on a university campus, and she didn't like that. I mean, whether leftist Democrats, students, they, for example, a conservative group will set up a table just to hand out literature for anybody that comes by, and they'll come along and tip over the table and then start punching people out.
well,
And then, of
Walt,
course,
I agree with you. There is violence. I think there's violence on both sides, but certainly there's more violence from the left these days than from the right.
Absolutely.
I'll
goes
grant
back to
you
the
that.
60s.
But I want to throw something out to you because you're also a veteran. And a book that I read the other day, I read it in 2 days, a little over 300 pages long. It was one of those spellbinding books that I couldn't put down, and one of the most terrifying books that I've ever read in my entire life. And it's called Nuclear War, A Scenario by Annie Jacobsen. Have you heard of the book? It won the Pulitzer Prize.
No.
So it came out in 2024, won the Pulitzer Prize, New York Times bestseller. It basically, the author drew upon assistance from a variety of former leaders of the Defense Department, former secretaries of defense from both Republicans and Democrats, and former Joint Chiefs of Staff members, and just a whole, just a gang full of people who were in the know. And basically, she created a book about a scenario where North Korea launches a nuclear attack on Washington, D.C., and the Diablo nuclear power plant in California, and how quickly things spin out of control that it leads to Armageddon and a full-out, all-out nuclear exchange between the United States and Russia that literally wipes out mankind. And it's done very meticulously. It talks about what happens in the hour from the launch and how, it talks about the evacuation of the president to Site R. It talks about basically, what would be happening at ground zero at these different locations and the U.S. response. And it also points out that all the things that we think that are in place to protect us don't exist. The THAAD anti-ballistic missile system, we have them. We were supposed to have 4 on each coast to try and shoot down ballistic missiles, but we basically took the THAAD system. We shipped 1 unit over to Ukraine. We shipped other units to South Korea and to the Middle East. And so we don't have those protections. It's just terrifying how screwed up things can get in a matter of minutes. Just miscalculations and misinformation. And again, there's, for example, Leon Panetta is quoted in the book. And he says that, there's a real problem that exists. If we launch our nuclear missiles, our Minutemen III, and we launch them over the North Pole toward North Korea, they have to go through Russian airspace. And at that point, the Russians would believe that they're under attack. And that's exactly what happens in this book. And how we have this idea, once again, that we have, 30 minutes to make decisions, but the submarine-launched ballistic missile that hits the Diablo nuclear power plant is launched. There's only a 6-minute window because it's launched, of course, from the Pacific Ocean. It is a terrifying book. It is a phenomenally good book. And when you read the reviews by people in the know, and again on both sides of the aisle, it's just it's spellbinding and terrifying at the same time.
The scary thing about the nuclear threat of nuclear war is I'm not so concerned about the major players like the United States, Russia, and the Red Chinese. It's the minor players,
Right.
like, for example, the Pakistanis and the Indians, for example, or the North Koreans. I don't think that, in terms of a nuclear exchange over the North Pole, it'd probably be between the Russians and the Americans from our land-based launching systems. But if the North Koreans were to attack with their limited nuclear inventory, we don't need to send missiles over the North Pole. I mean, we have submarines that missile launching submarines that could strike the North Koreans sitting off of California coast type thing. So
it's true. It's true to a point, but as this book points out, part of the problem is that the Russian systems, for example, the Russian detection systems, are not nearly as advanced as the U.S. systems, and so they frequently make miscalculations. Their computer systems that back up their radar detection systems make all kinds of miscalculations. And by the way, the author quotes several Russian experts who say, yeah, this is a shortcoming. And so it comes down to miscommunication and just misunderstanding that when they launch the submarine launched ballistic missiles at North Korea, the Russian radar miscalculates what's going on once again because of the location of the submarine in the Pacific. It's just, again, you really need to read this book, Walt. I'd love for you to read it because
what's the name of the book again?
It's called Nuclear War, A Scenario by Annie Jacobson. And I have to say it's terrifying how things, it's a domino effect. So things keep on falling apart that you would think are there to protect us. It's kind of like what Mont is going to come in next week. We're going to talk about Operation Able Archer and Operation Ryan and the threat that we had in 1983 where we came within milliseconds of an all-out nuclear exchange. And the book mentions that exchange, in fact. And so I was reading it in part to prepare for next week. It's just, it's a terrifying scenario, though, because we have this idea, they point out that Washington, D.C. gets leveled by a 1 megaton bomb. And there is, there's basically no chance at all. We have this idea that, FEMA is going to go in and rescue people. They're not going anywhere near there. This firestorm that is caused by this 1 megaton bomb creates a firestorm that I believe that she said spreads out to a diameter of about 7 miles, and everything in it is being just totally turned to ash. So this idea that, well, we're going to go in, we're going to save people, the people that are surviving are just left for dead because there's no way to go in there because of the radiation and the fire, and it's just a terrifying book to read.
Well, there's one saving grace in all this, and that is I don't think the Russians or the Chicoms would be very happy about the prospects of the North Koreans launching against the United States. And I think there's my guess that there's conversation between them when it comes to a strategic issue like this. And I could see the Red Chinese and the Russians tell the Americans, wipe these knuckleheads in North Korea off the map. I mean, because they understand that if North Korea does something stupid, really ridiculous like that, it could very well pull them into the conflict. And if there's a general nuclear exchange between the Russians and the Americans,
life as we know it ends. Life as we know it ends. That's what basically the book ends with. Yes. Is that life ends for the human race, and 24,000 years later, the Earth is inhabitable again, and that's where it ends in the book. And it's terrifying, but you're right. You would hope, and in fact, there's mention there's mention in the book that the Russians and the Chinese are telling the North Koreans not to do this, but Kim Jong Un doesn't care less, and he goes out and he's going to go out in this blaze of glory, and we respond. And of course, as soon as we respond and we take out North Korea, we're killing literally millions of Chinese because they're just downwind from the radiation. It's a great book, but it's terrifying. So we'll leave it at that. Thanks so much, Walt. And again, that was not deliberate, just so you know. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Have a good day. 845-1100. Let's take a quick break. You're listening to The Morning Call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. You can also get us on YouTube Live and the TuneIn app. We'll be right back after these commercial messages. All right, we're back, and I know we've got some callers waiting, so we'll go to those callers, but very quickly an update on traffic. If you're on the Dan Ryan, right about where our over-the-air signal starts to fade out, there's a backup, so you'll want to switch to the TuneIn app and enjoy listening to the show, because you're going to be stuck for a while listening to us on the radio and not getting to work. There's a backup again, and now it stretches back to 51st on the Ryan. So problems this morning getting into the city on the Ryan. I will suggest the alternative, which is Lakeshore Drive is wide open right now, looks really good. There's still that problem on inbound I-57. Otherwise, roads look pretty good. And we know it's going to be cold today, so bundle up, and it's going to get really cold tomorrow, right, Lynette?
Mm-hmm.
So with that, let's take some callers. I know a few people are being very patient. So good morning. You're on the air.
What is up, homeboy? How you doing?
I'm doing fine. How are you?
Good. Are you keeping that gigantic melon ears warm in this cold weather today?
I'm keeping nice and warm and toasty, and I use the remote start on my car this time of the year. I'll say that. So.
Billionaire problems. What's the temp in the pool, by the way?
The temp of the pool has got to be about 32 degrees. So.
You need to step up and get that dome going, bro. Don't tell me you ain't working. Come on.
Sure, I'll put a dome over my pool. That's right. Anyway, what's on your mind?
Hey, well, I'd tell you what. I'd agree with Walt that it happens with the lip. Now, not that he got cut off accidentally, but and I don't bring it up. But if a lib's standing there and wants to talk politics, yeah, I'm more than happy to talk about it at any time. But boy, they hear a couple things they don't like, and they shut down in a New York second, man. Oh, okay, and then they walk away. You know, their tolerance for open discussion is about zero, which was demonstrated yesterday with the interview by McDermott. He's got Mike Braun, the governor, coming in and spending a bunch of money up in his town, and he wants to do a protest. And the classic example is Berkeley, California. Anybody goes out there, any conservative, well, particularly Ben Shapiro's done it probably 20 times, and Coulter, they announced they're going out there to give a speech or have a discussion, you know, and there's 8,000 psychos with purple hair, you know, and arrows through their head, screaming and yelling at people. And when a liberal goes to talk anywhere, there's never a protest. There's never any violence. It just doesn't happen that way.
Well, I didn't understand.
Libs are out of their minds.
I didn't understand the all the hype by the mayor yesterday over Mike Braun coming to Hammond for a fundraiser. There's some debate as to how much the tickets actually were, but look.
So what? So what if it's $1 million?
Here's the issue. McDermott has fundraisers all the time. He has an annual fundraiser. I think it's about $1,000 a head that he holds. People aren't told to go out there and protest. I mean, if Mike Braun wants to come to Hammond and have a fundraiser, let him have it. Plus, my understanding from several sources that the mayor took Mike Braun around and showed him, gave him a, you know, as Paul Goddard described it, a dog and pony tour of Hammond, including the new meat plant. So, you know, at the end of the day, I really didn't understand why those people were there. You know, you have the right to protest. You have the right to protest, but is it going to do any good if you wear a frog outfit and stand across the street? Does that really impact the governor one way or the other? I think there are issues that need to be discussed and need to be protested, but I didn't understand why we're protesting the fact they have a fundraiser. Just about every elected official in this state has fundraisers. I don't know of any that don't, in fact. So, you know, maybe a local councilman or something. You know, let them have the fundraiser. I didn't get that one.
It's none of your business. You don't like it, don't attend it. Don't go to it. Stay away from it. But you don't have to go there and act like an immature horse's ass and make a fool of yourself. I mean, that's what the whole interview sounded like yesterday. It's like, just let the guy have his fundraiser. Like I said, none of your business. Doesn't matter. $100 million a seat. None of your business. Yeah.
At the end of the day, it's. I mean, again, if you want to protest, that's fine too. But I don't. I don't totally understand why that was given as much play and as much coverage on social media when there are other issues to talk about. I mean, look, I get it. The discussion about redistricting, that's an issue people should weigh in on. All right, that's an issue. Look, if you agree, you disagree. That's something that you should weigh in on. I agree on that. But whether somebody has a fundraiser or not, every politician has fundraisers. So don't act like it's, oh my gosh, somebody's having a fundraiser, because it's like, okay, but everybody has a fundraiser. So what's the point? I don't know.
Well, since you mentioned redistricting, by the way, you know, these guys act like all of a sudden Trump decided, we got to start redistricting. That's not what happened. the census came out, the people who ran the census, and everybody on both sides admitted they screwed up the census. The Republicans should have got about 17 or 18 more seats, but they screwed up the census. And they're like, we're missing out on 17 seats. You know how much that is? We would have had a layup in 2026 to hold the House. But, you know, it's hard to believe another error by the Democrats goes against the Republicans and the conservatives. It just never ends. That's why they did the redistricting.
I'm going to be honest with you. I'm going to be honest with you. Look, I get it. I've read the stories that have said that there were mistakes. I'm not real comfortable with redistricting. I'll be very honest with you. I'm not, and that's my opinion. And the reason why is because you're right. There were mistakes made on both sides. And
no. There were not mistakes made on both sides. Every single one of those mistakes went against the conservatives. They're not mistakes on both sides, Tom.
Who redistricted the state of Indiana? The current districts. Who set that up? Was it the Democrats or the Republicans?
The one we're going through right now.
The ones that we have right now. Who set that up?
Well, Donald Trump is hoping for it.
No, not the one, not the proposed one. The one we currently have, the one that defines, for example, the first district is Lake County, Porter County, and part of LaPorte County. Who did the redistricting in the state of Indiana? Who did the redistricting in the state of Indiana?
How long ago was it? 10 years ago? 20 years ago?
No, it was just done in 2020. You said it yourself. The redistricting that was done in 2020 was done by the Republicans in Indiana. Each state does their own redistricting. So,
right, well, who did it favor? Anybody, or did it keep things just as they were?
Well, it kept things as they were. But my point
is, there you go.
Okay, but you said it was all the Democrats, and that's not true because
the census.
The census was
every error in the census went against the conservatives and the Republicans, and even the Democrats admit it. Biden's administration came out and said we did make grave errors in this, and every single one of them went against the conservatives. That's all I'm saying.
Again, Mike, the point is that the redistricting in Indiana was based on the Republicans being in power, having a supermajority in the Senate and in the House. They redistricted in 2020 or 2021.
But as you just said, it was neutral. It didn't have an effect of changing.
And it didn't have an effect. So now they want to go back and change it. Okay, and now
because of the 2020 census, which came
who was
out
president? But who was president in
country.
2020 when the census was taken? Who was president?
Yeah, it was done by the people in the administration at the time.
Was Donald Trump.
Right, and who was running most of the government at the time? The deep state, the Democrats, et cetera, et cetera.
Again,
look, I know them. I have relatives in there.
Look, so. I agree with you about some of the bureaucrats and some of the autocrats that exist for years and have existed for years in the federal government, and they certainly do favor the Democrats. I'll agree with you on that. I'll agree with you that the Biden administration, you're absolutely right. They admitted that there were problems with some of the numbers. I'll agree to that. But my point is that in the state of Indiana, the people who adopted the current districting were the Republicans. And now the Republicans are saying that was wrong and they have to fix it. But my point is that they failed to admit that then if it was broken 4 years ago, then they're to blame because they're the ones who adopted it.
Yeah,
you can't get around that. You can't get around that.
Well, I don't think they're saying it was broken in 2020. They're just doing it to react to what happened nationwide is all, But
they're gerrymandering. They're gerrymandering the system quite a bit.
Right.
Okay.
Just like they do in Illinois
and just like Illinois and
California.
And you know what? I was talking to Walt about this book, Nuclear War, and it's a book you'd enjoy. You'd enjoy that book, but it's kind of in the book. It points out that there's this domino effect where people just can't stop. That the Russians are so fearful that the U.S. is actually targeting them, they start launching missiles. Because their systems are saying that they're being launched towards Russia, even though the Russians know that it's the North Koreans that started the exchange, and they have a pretty good idea and believe that the U.S. is responding to North Korea, but their systems are saying otherwise, so they rely on the systems. Go ahead, ask away on that
I've
book.
read they left. That they left because you're having Mon on next. Is that next Wednesday?
Yeah, Mon and I are going to talk about Able Archer and Operation Ryan next Wednesday, and I'll tell you what, it's terrifying. I mean, it is truly terrifying how close we came. One colonel in the Russian military basically saved us from nuclear Armageddon.
What year was that?
1983.
Okay, yeah. So is he going to be on for the whole show for you?
You know what? He and I need to talk and work out how long we're going to be able to cover it. I don't think we'll be able to devote the entire show, but we're going to devote plenty of time to cover. And we're also going to talk about the incident in Damascus, Arkansas, because that one, once again, we almost blew up the entire U.S. South. I mean, 9.8 megatons. This was a monster. This was the biggest weapon we fielded. The thing shoots up, lands in a farm field, and we don't even know where the warhead is.
Guys pull up with a pickup truck with like 3 fenders on it. They're like, "Hey, we can scrap this thing." They whip out the portable arc welder.
It's what they were afraid. They were literally afraid that somebody was going to go over to it and not know what it was and hit the darn thing. I mean, they were afraid that a farmer could run over it with a plow. I mean, they didn't know where it was. They couldn't find it.
They're banging it with a sledgehammer.
Well, it sounds kind of crazy, but it could have truly happened. And so those accidents are frightening.
Hey, what do you think? Hey, what do you think's in there?
It's truly frightening. And again, all the systems were designed that once that warhead went airborne, it was supposed to be armed, and once it's armed, that's it, right? When it falls to Earth, boom, that's the end of it. That's the way the Titan II is designed. And truly, just by happenstance, the thing lands in a field and doesn't go off. And the systems basically, when they find the warhead, they realize the systems basically were armed. It didn't go off. I mean, there's something called the LeMay switch. Curtis LeMay, of all people, insisted that there be an extra safety switch, and it's that safety switch that's in the warhead that LeMay had insisted upon in the 1950s and 60s that keeps the missile, the warhead from actually blowing up. But I mean, 9.8 megatons. This thing would have wiped out people from like everywhere south, I believe, from St. Louis on south. That's how disastrous this thing could have been. And one of the more humorous points in the book, I mean, it's a riveting account, but there is the point about Jimmy Carter when he's contacted by his chief of staff, and I forget his chief of staff's name, maybe you remember it, but the chief of staff tells the president what's going on, and they say, should we contact the governor of Arkansas? And Carter basically says, no, we can't trust him. And the governor of Arkansas,
Bill Clinton, right?
He's the new governor of Arkansas is Bill Clinton. Yeah, I mean, he's too
busy watching the cocaine get run up and down the down his airfield by the what's his name.
Well, by the way, they're driving around. You mentioned pickup trucks. That's what they're using to find this thing. They're driving around in pickup trucks looking for the warhead in the middle of the night, out in a cornfield in the middle of Arkansas.
Hey, Gomer. You growing any corn out? You got a big piece of metal out there? You guys walking around with metal detectors like they think they're in the beach in Palm Beach or something.
Well, and it's comical. It's comical in a way, but when you think about the reality of things, it's not. It's frightening because again, it could have gone off at any time, and there was no. We have this idea like there's all this these multiple layers of preparation, and it's the same point in this book. Nuclear War by Annie Jacobson, where we have this idea that there's all these residuals and layers that are going to protect us from accident. And the fact is that those layers don't exist. That in a matter of minutes, the book covers the Jacobson book covers 1 hour from the time the first missile is launched at Washington D.C. until the annihilation of the Earth. And how things just spin out of control. The Russians, for example, don't understand why the president hasn't contacted them. But the president tried to contact them, but the call is basically mishandled and misdirected.
The call's going through AOL, and it's getting that.
Well, they point out that the Russians don't have a really great communication system, so the calls are being dropped.
No way, you're kidding me.
It's. I mean, again, this book draws on the experts of former secretaries of defense and former leaders of the defense systems in Russia. So it's not just the U.S. point of view. It's the Russian point of view. It's very good. Very, very good. Very scary.
What is it called? The LeMay switch?
The LeMay switch is the switch that saves the day with the...
Well, you know what that was? That's the precursor to the same kind of top that is now on all your prescription bottles, right? It's the same kind of thing. He couldn't get it off.
Yeah, it pretty much comes down to
it with a hammer, and he couldn't get the lid off. That's how he saved our lives.
By the way, the cause of the accident, the cause of the missile exploding in the silo, is because a repairman drops a hammer, and it goes through the side of the missile. I'm not kidding you, and that's what ignites the gases in the missile and launches the missile. Is because
I must have seen something like that, because I do remember seeing a clip or something where the guy's dropping a Craftsman open-ended crescent wrench down the side, and the guy's like,
and it goes through the side of the missile. I think you're right. I think you're right. I stand corrected.
There goes my family heirloom that my grandfather gave me. Next thing you know, he sees the flames coming out. He's like, "Uh-oh,
you're right. It's a crescent wrench, not a hammer." And I think you're right. I think it's a Craftsman wrench, by the way. But it goes through the side of the missile because the missile is built it's designed in the 1950s. It's a huge missile, the Titan II, and so the skin is made of very lightweight aluminum, and the wrench goes through the side, punctures the tanks, causes the missile to lift off, and I mean just one stupid step after another. And there are a couple of heroes in the book, and that basically valiantly saved the day. But it's, I mean, again, the incident is scary. The book by Annie Jacobson is just terrifying because anything can go wrong. The Russian detection systems for nuclear launch basically regularly make mistakes. They point this out of reading clouds instead of reading the contrails from the missiles. They're reading clouds over the horizon. And they're assuming that the clouds that they're reading are missile trails. And it's just,
amazing.
I mean, it's just, yeah. And again, we have this idea that we live in, 2025. We've got technology that'll clarify these mistakes. And
yeah, we've probably got better technology in our phones than the Russians have, like defending their own stupid country.
And how about the U.S.? How about the fact that the U.S. has allocated funds to put the THAAD missile system, for example, all these missile systems that we have, these anti-ballistic systems, on both coasts. But we don't have them. Why? Well, we built the systems and then we sent them overseas to protect other countries. So when we need them, we don't have them.
That's where our boy Donald Trump comes in and says, hey, we're starting to do stuff for us and not everybody else.
Well, the Golden Dome idea, I kind of question that, but after reading this book, I'm all for it because, again, the mistakes that could happen, that it doesn't have to be a planned nuclear attack. It could be an accidental nuclear attack because the North Koreans are using submarines that were designed by the Russians in the 1950s.
They're using the same submarines that they went down to visit the Titanic.
Yeah, but unfortunately, they're using these 1950s submarines, so their communication systems, their backup systems, their launch systems were all designed in the 1950s, and it's true that the North Koreans are actually using those subs right now for their submarine-launched ballistic missiles. So,
hey, have you seen the movie on Netflix by Catherine Bigelow called House of Dynamite?
No, I'm not, but I just have to interrupt you and say that I did watch The Beast in Me, and that is a fantastic little miniseries. You were right on
I told
target.
you, huh? That's good, right?
That
You
was
like it?
great. That was a great. I liked it because it was 8 episodes long. It kept your attention, but it didn't go on for 3 seasons or 4 seasons and 35 episodes. It was just long enough, and it was very good.
Yeah, and
You're
it
right.
didn't really have a lull to it, and the characters were just I mean, they just drew you in, and you wanted to root for them and against them at multiple times watching it. The story carried out pretty well. I mean, you get a little bit of a tad bit of mafia hokiness kind of type stuff, but when they wrapped it up at the end, because as I'm watching this, I thought I was on the last. Thought I was on episode 8. I was only on 7, so I had to stop it and look. I'm like, how the hell are they going to wrap this up like in 25 minutes? And then thank God, I'm like, oh, I'm only on number 7. It wasn't 8. I'm like, oh, this is going to be good.
You know
and
what?
It delivered well. I thought it was great.
The ending is wonderful because the ending basically proves what I say all the time about the dangers and the concerns people should have of cell phones. Let's just leave it at that.
Yeah, it was good though.
Yes, absolutely.
All right,
thanks.
Thomas, great show, brother.
Thanks for the call. 845-1100, we have another call. We're going to take a break. All right. We're going to take a quick break. It's the morning call with Tom Dabertin on WJOB, 1230 AM, 104.7 FM. We'll be right back. All right, we're back, and you're listening to WJOB 1230 AM and 104.7 FM in Hammond, Indiana. Station identification on time. Look at that. It's the morning call with Tom Dabertin. We'll be here until 9 o'clock. At 8:30, we've got the Whiting-Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce show. But talking about a lot of different things this morning, but let's begin with traffic and weather. Earlier this morning, I said traffic was just doing great in Chicago. Well, one thing about Chicago traffic, it changes pretty quickly, and it is now getting close to disaster stage. The Dan Ryan is backed up all the way to 59th now, not looking good. So if you're looking for an alternate, use Lakeshore Drive. Looks pretty good. State Street looks okay. I-57 continues to show problems. Other expressways, the Kennedy, the Eisenhower, the Stevenson are all backed up. Northwest Indiana is in really good shape right now. I-65 is actually open all the way down well past to Rensselaer, so that's looking really good. 8094 is in good shape. The toll road, Klein Avenue, all look pretty decent. There is a backup at the toll plaza in Portage for the toll road, but of course that's expected. So again, Northwest Indiana, you're going to get around. Once you get across the line into Illinois, 294 is going to be your best bet around the city. That's actually in pretty good shape. But if you're going to use any of the theater expressways through downtown, you're going to have problems this morning. And with that, let's talk about weather because it is mightily cold.
Good morning, everyone. Today we're at 23 degrees with highs of 32 and lows of 7. It's going to be mostly cloudy, breezy, and chilly with some flurries this afternoon. Later tonight it's going to be breezy, otherwise clearing and frigid. And then tomorrow and Thursday we'll be having highs of 15 and lows of 4. It's going to be mostly sunny and very cold. And then Friday we'll be having highs of 26 and lows of 22 with increasing clouds and should be very cold.
So, Lynette, I did notice that there's a little snow on your car.
There
okay,
is.
But it's the cleanest snow on anybody's car I've seen. Just kidding. Let me ask you a question. You know, you heard me talking with Mad Mac about nuclear war and with Walt. Does that scare you? Does that worry you?
That's my biggest fear.
Is it really?
Yeah.
Next week is going to be a very scary day then for you because Mont Hanley's coming in. We're going to talk about some situations that have happened. And yes, they happened in the 1980s, but the fact is that things haven't gotten any better. And this book that I read, again, normally I'll read a book. It'll take me about a month. I'll read a few pages here and there, and read an hour or so a day and put it down. And I picked up this book. My son bought it for me last Christmas, and it was on my list of reads, so it was time. And I started reading this book on Sunday, and I was so taken in by the book that I finished it yesterday. And every chance I got, I went back to the book. And it's not an easy read because it's talking about all these systems. And so you're kind of having to go back and forth and like, well, what is cybers again? And, checking it. And it's just terrifying. It's truly terrifying what can happen in 1 hour's time where the author does such a good job. She describes people who are, picking up their kids from school. And she says, that 6 minutes before impact in California, people are out, enjoying the sunny blue skies, and people in Omaha are out shopping, and people in New York are running errands and getting ready to go home because the time changes. And she does a very good job kind of laying out what's going on in society. And an hour later, we've destroyed mankind. And it's just, again, we have this idea that there's all these fail-safes, right? That, the Russians are going to know that that's not a flock of geese that's flying. Those are ballistic missiles. Well, no, because their radar systems are so antiquated that they actually would be detecting a flock of geese, thinking a flock of geese are incoming ICBM warheads. It's terrifying, just terrifying. So, good book to read, but it'll keep you up at night. 845-1100 is the number, and we've got callers, so we'll go right to the calls. Good morning, you're on the air.
Yeah, well, that's one thing. If President Trump could get one thing done in 4 years, get that Golden Dome built. We waste enough of this country's money on pure garbage. Get that Golden Dome ×2 built.
You're absolutely right. And I didn't think much of it until I read this book, but you read, and again, the author is quoting. She is being advised by secretaries of defense, both former secretaries of defense from the Republican Party and the Democratic Party, and members of the Joint Chiefs of Staff are giving her the advice, and she quotes them throughout the book. And they point out that, unfortunately, what we think we have in place, we have nothing. We have 44 interceptors at 2 air bases. Most of them are in Alaska, 4 are in California. So 40 of the interceptors are in Alaska. And she points out that if an ICBM is coming toward the United States, once it makes its maximum lift and it starts to re-enter the atmosphere, basically those warheads have all kinds of chaff to confuse interceptors. So those 40 interceptors that we have would be basically overwhelmed very quickly under current circumstances, and that's it. That's all the protection we have. And of course, when the Russians in the book launch an all-out attack, those 40 interceptors can do nothing because they're launching thousands of missiles, and so it's terrifying.
Well, and those a lot of those warheads too, when they come to re-enter, and they'll basically bust up, and they'll have 8 warheads in one.
Right, the MIRV missiles, the multiple independent re-entry
exactly.
vehicle. Yes.
Yeah. So if an interceptor goes up, it might get one of them, but some will still get past it.
You'll get one, and 7 will come through. Right.
Exactly. Yeah. So, but yeah, we need that dome, and not really that you guys just got on that subject, but you were talking about snow plowing earlier.
Yes.
So the Lake County Highway Department just eliminated my mailbox yesterday morning. So,
and I'm sure if you call them, they usually will replace it. They usually take care of it. Correct?
Yep. So I called, and they're like, "Oh, the guy was real nice." He goes, "Oh, let me get my list." I'm like, "Oh, okay. I guess I'm not the only one here." So we're chit chatting. He's like, "Yeah, I'm not going to be able to get there today, but I'll get there tomorrow." And I'm like, "Okay, whatever. That's cool." And he's like, if you don't see me by noon, just call. He said, if I'm not here, I might have took day off. He said, I've been here for 3 days. I've got 4 hours of sleep on my air mattress in my office at the highway department.
And again,
so they're working.
They're humans,
they're
right? They're human beings, and they make mistakes. And how critical people have been on some of these local chat sites. What's going on in Hammond, for example, was just brutal the last few days. People claiming that the plows aren't out, and then it basically they're coming back and saying, the plows are out, but they didn't do my street. All that matters is doing my street. And the few times that people, I think Scott Miller at one point, the chief of staff, weighed in and said, "Hey, folks, be patient. We're working. We're working diligently. We try and hit the main roads first, and then the residential roads." And somebody says, well, go F yourself. We don't care what you have to say, that, you should be hitting my street first. And people complaining about getting plowed back in. Look, they came past my house. I cleaned the street. They plowed around the car that my daughter's fiance had parked in front of the house. So I had to go out there again with the snow blower and clean it up again. So what? I mean, it's snow. It's not Armageddon.
Yeah, well, the Lake County Highway Department plows my street, and that's a big monster blade on that snowplow. And he came down that street yesterday morning. He must have been doing 30 mile an hour, and it was like a tidal wave of ice and snow, and my mailbox didn't stand a chance.
Yeah, and again, we have this idea that plow drivers. I mean, the women who, there was one woman in particular who had an exchange with another woman, and they both just over and over and over said there's no excuse. No one should get plowed under. The plow driver should get out of his truck, and he should take a shovel, and he should shovel the snowbank away from cars. And it's like, okay, well, you realize how long that would take?
Tom, come on. Tom,
I mean, but I thought they were joking at first. I thought it was a joke. And then I realized these people were absolutely serious, that they believed that, the plow somehow, somebody said, why can't they just plow the snow to the end of the street, get a high lift and load it into trucks and haul it away? And somebody said because it would take days to remove a 2-inch snowfall. And they're like, with modern technology, you're wrong. And the person said, well, I operate heavy equipment. So what? You operate antiquated equipment. And then some woman weighs in with some crazy idea that we're going to buy Cub Cadets for communities, and they're going to do every street, and they're going to do every sidewalk, and they can do even the sidewalks up to people's stairs. And it's like, do you know how unlikely or impossible what you're saying would be? It's just, I mean, the insanity of all of it. It's just, it's scary.
Oh, that's women for you.
But it's not just women; it's men too. In fact, it was a post started by a man that kicked everything off because he was upset, and he was blaming the city of Hammond and I think the town of Munster for not plowing Calumet Avenue, even though a number of people said it is the state's responsibility, it's not the city's responsibility, and he kept on saying that they were wrong because AI says it's the city's responsibility. Well, I mean, AI isn't perfect. It was wrong. The Calumet Avenue, Indianapolis Boulevard, for example, through Hammond and East Chicago and Whiting and other communities, those are state roads, those are state highways, and people just the breakdown in trust and communication and civility. I mean, if you can get that unraveled over snow, just imagine what would happen if we had a nuclear war. Wow.
Yeah. I was just joking about the whole women comment. I just want to see if I get Lynette to hang up on me.
No, she was close, but she was fighting her right hand with her left hand. No,
I know.
So, hey, thanks so much.
Have a good one.
Thanks for the call. 845-1100 is the number to call. We have more callers. We'll go to those callers. Good morning. You're on the air.
Tom, good morning.
Good morning.
Hey, just a guess on my part, and you can tell me if I'm totally wrong. In all the professional positions you've held, I'm guessing that maybe one time in that career, that splendid career you've had, you formulated a correspondence when emotions were running high. And then maybe you took a tactical pause, came back to it, and said, you know what, maybe I shouldn't hit send.
Hundreds of times.
Any truth?
Hundreds of times. Hundreds of times. Absolutely correct. And your point is well taken. So go ahead, continue.
Well, if you represent 80,000 people and you've been in a position for 20 years, how much favor do you think you're going to garner? And let's back up. Let's not use favor. Let's say professional respect. You're going to garner from the governor when you blast him in 2 or 3 emails instead of just staying silent, welcoming him to your city, and extending a professional handshake.
Well, here's what I don't understand, okay? Again, I said this earlier. Every politician, including the one you're talking about, has fundraisers, all right? And some of those fundraisers get pretty expensive. And if you're going to post about the governor's fundraisers, well, what if the governor or the people that don't like you start posting about yours? I mean, nobody wants to have their events interrupted. Look, as far as I'm concerned, if you're a politician, it's just it's a fact of life that you're going to have a fundraiser. If you have a fundraiser, good luck to you. I'm not coming, but enjoy your evening, and I hope you have nice conversations. I mean, I've been to plenty of them over the years. I never really liked going to them, to be very honest with you. There's a lot of people that are there that everybody spends time telling you how much stronger their relationship is with the politician that's having the fundraiser than your relationship. People are trying to, outdo each other and brag. And to me, it's just like, you get very little done. You look at life and you say, life is too short. I could be home watching reruns of Andy Griffith and be at this thing. I mean, that's really how I always viewed it. So I don't really like going to them. But I understand, politicians have to raise money, and I've given money to politicians over the years. But if you have a fundraiser, so be it. If I have a fundraiser, so be it. Why turn your fundraiser into a controversy? I agree with you. It doesn't do any good for the city or the town or the district that you're representing to take on another person, especially when you're not running against them. Okay? If it's your opponent, if you and I are both running for office, let's say you and I are running for state senate against each other. All right, I might try and get people to show up to picket at your event. You might try and get people to picket at my event. We might try and disrupt each other's events because we're opponents. But unless we're running directly against each other, who cares? Just leave it alone.
The point of this, Tom, is once again, he has to walk back his comments instead of pausing and putting out a professional response to this. Governor, we're happy to see you, so on and so forth. So if you haven't learned that after 20 years, not to fire back a heated response, I don't know. People are surmising that you're going to run for another position, perhaps governor. I don't know that you'd ever get my vote.
Well, I think, I think at the end of the day, it just doesn't make a lot of sense to basically participate in that type of exchange. I agree with you. There are hundreds of times where you write something, you're ready to fire off the most nasty email, most nasty letter of your life, and then you read it and you think about it for a minute. It's like, oh, forget it, and you hit delete and get rid of that file. I mean, I've done that, sure, but it's part of being professional. It's part of being an adult. You pull back from some of your biggest fears, I guess. Some of your biggest fears and some of your biggest, there are times where, look, in your own personal life, you want to go tell off your spouse or your child or your brother or your sister, and you bite your tongue and think about it for a few minutes, and it's like, yeah, it's not worth the consequences. I'll just shut up, right?
Well, Tom, he's your friend, so maybe you could share that strategy with him. Maybe he could learn from you.
Well, he has not explained to me why he made the governor's fundraiser an issue, and I can just say this: I can't imagine a good reason for making it into an issue. I just think that it was a miscalculation, and I agree with you. If you're not running against him, you're not. He's not your direct opponent. Just leave him alone. Let him have his fundraiser. And why promote the fact that he's even having a fundraiser? Why promote anything? Maybe after the fact, if you really want to hurt him, point out after the fact that he had the fundraiser. But don't promote it in advance. I don't see the value. And 15 people out there, one dressed up in a giant frog outfit, a nylon frog outfit. What does that have to do with anything? It's just a waste of time.
You represent 80,000 people, and at some point you may need something from downstate.
Well, you'd be a lot better off. The person in the frog outfit certainly would have been better served watching the reruns of Andy Griffith last night. They were actually good episodes.
Or going to Phil Smith's.
Oh, that was good. All right, take care.
Take care, Tom.
845-1100. We have additional callers. We've got people waiting. Good morning. You're on the air.
Oh, that was good.
Go ahead.
Yeah, hi, Tom. I have to kill the radio here.
Yes, you do.
Good show as per usual. I was listening to you guys talking about the nuclear tests, that kind of thing. There's a long history of these guys being completely out of control. At one point, one story I heard was that they ignited an airburst up in the ionosphere, trying to blow a hole through the ionosphere just to see if it could be done. They made a schlocky movie out of it called Voyage to the Bottom of the Sea back in the early 60s about the Van Allen belt being set on fire by something like that, if I remember right. But it's really, it is scary, like you're saying, to see how hell-bent these people are, to see how much destruction they could actually do to this planet, and there's not a lot of controls over it. I don't know if you've heard of Plum Island, Operation Paperclip after World War II. A lot of German scientists are brought here. They're doing biological experiments. They decided to bring that stateside and see what they could develop for the Army. A place called Plum Island, I think in New York. And one of the things the Germans were working on during World War II was a tick-borne disease that could be spread to an enemy position or something like that, and then sure enough, it wasn't too long after that we wind up with Lyme disease. Lyme was named after Lyme, New York, which is pretty close to Plum Island, if I remember right.
You
But there's a
know,
long
it's
history
scary. It's scary because you're right. There are a lot of experiments that have gone bad over the years. But again, and Dave from Gary just texted me and said, does the idea of an integrated missile defense system have anything to do with Donald Trump's potential interest as a partner in a venture capital firm, 1789 Capital, which is invested in companies related to the defense industry? The fact is no, Dave. The answer is absolutely not, because that was not. There's no relationship whatsoever. The idea of putting a defense system actually is part of the basis of this book by Annie Jacobson. It was written in 2024 before Trump won the election. And she and Leon Panetta, the former Secretary of Defense, is saying, hey, there is a need for a defense system. We don't have one. So I think, again, I thought, when Trump first brought it up, it's just, more of his kind of blowhard approach to things. But now that I read this book, it's like, wow, there's really a need for some improvement because we have nothing protecting us.
Right. Well, it's funny that after all these years, the emphasis was not on defensive systems; it was on offensive systems. Like you're saying, why? Or as far as civil defense in this country, it's like run down a basement, bend over. That's about it. Russia has a fully integrated civil defense system, from what I understand, with bomb shelters, that kind of thing, and yet we have nothing here. And our whole almost as long as I've been alive now, civil defense in this country has been a joke. I remember as a kid hiding under the desk. We actually took first aid classes in the third grade on what to do in case of nuclear fallout and that kind of thing. But it is interesting that after all these years, nothing was set up for defense. It's all offensive. And if and like I say, if you look at the history of biological, even eclipses what's going on in nuclear. When you look at the Tuskegee experiments they did when they just wanted to study the effects of syphilis on people instead of treating them.
Yeah. And we exposed an entire population of African American soldiers and didn't tell them what we were doing to them. Yeah, I mean look.
Yeah, how blatant can you get? Then there were other experiments supposedly where they released pathogens in the subway system in New York. One study was something of plutonium they released in Minnesota. And now you've got. I remember a few years back seeing the videos in the Canadian government where they announced that they had the patents on geoengineering, chemtrails, that kind of thing, where they're going to spray aerosols up in the atmosphere to block the sun and interface that with electromagnetic emissions out of these, what they call upper atmosphere heaters, like HARP, super powerful, super low frequency radio emitters that would actually ionize these clouds of chemtrails they were releasing to see if they could use it to block the sun and affect the weather. These guys are out of control. I mean, there's no oversight on this. They've got black budgets. The Congress is a joke. Half these guys don't even know the stuff's going on.
Well, again, what's scary is that we actually passed legislation, and I think it was under the Bush administration, George W. Bush, to install the THAAD, ballistic missile protection system on both coasts. And then we bought the systems, but instead of installing them in the United States, we sent them overseas and we sold them off to other people. It's like, what the devil's going on?
Yeah, well, it just goes to show you they care less about the U.S. population. They're in the military-industrial complex is there to make money, and they care. The whole thing they sell it to the public that it's going to be something to protect the American public or for our defense, and yet at the same time, all you wind up doing is getting involved with foreign entanglements and using this to line your pockets with sales overseas. We're the biggest arms dealer in the world in this country.
Well, and I'm just going to do a shout out to Dave from Gary, because Dave's sending me a bunch of texts this morning, and he's claiming that the whole reason why Trump wants to put the defense system into place to protect the U.S. from nuclear attack is because it would benefit his son's investments. And my point is, and he's comparing it to Hunter Biden's laptop. This is nonsense, Dave. The fact is that the people that are quoted in this book are largely Democrats, and they're saying that we need a better defense system. And so when Trump came into office, I didn't understand that when he said we need this golden dome, that it was based on largely the evaluation of Democrats who including Annie Jacobson, who's also a Democrat, who basically wrote this book and said, we're screwed because we have no defense system whatsoever. We have no detection system in place. And that's the basis of the discussion. And Dave, unfortunately, who's a friend of mine, is trying to turn this into a Democratic and Republican debate. And Leon Panetta says it best in the book. That's the problem. We debate everything based on politics, and we should be looking at what's needed to protect our country in case of an accidental nuclear exchange.
Well, I agree with him on that. I think that that's a dead end argument. I mean, this is way bigger than Trump. I mean, this goes back. I remember Reagan with Star Wars. The whole idea of that originally was supposed to be defensive. But
and she points out, by the way, that Reagan's defense initiative, his Star Wars idea, was a good idea, but it was before its time. Where now we do have technology that could actually, the Aegis missile systems that are available on ships at sea, for example. There's all these different defense mechanisms that are available, but we do this horrible job of building these things, and then we don't use them, or we locate them in places that aren't going to protect us. And that's the point of the book. Hey, thanks so much for calling.
Okay, hey, Tom?
Yes.
Well, one more thing real quick. If you get a chance, check out Dane Whittington has a podcast, I think, on chemtrailing, and he's really researched this stuff for 30, 40 years. This is really, our environment is actually under assault by all this stuff. And these, like I said, these people are out of control. Check into that if it'll keep you up
I'm
at night.
very skeptical on the chemtrailing claim. I just am. I'm sorry, but people who think that the contrails that they see from high-flying aircraft are some sort of chemtrails, I don't buy into that
well,
one.
the thing
I'm
is
sorry.
that, of course, years and years ago, I was a pilot, and, a little bit I know about it. At low altitudes, in the summertime when it's 90 degrees outside, the temperature doesn't fall off that fast for them things to be hanging in the air forever if it's just purely jet exhaust. There's something else going on here.
Okay, but here's the question: Why do you see those same contrails in other countries?
Why do you see them?
Yes. Why do you see them
Probably,
globally?
well, like I said, Canada had the patent on it originally, and it's an international effort. It's not just our country doing it. But
I think there's bigger fears.
Back in the 60s, they will control the weather, and if you think they're not going to try to do it, it's like you're saying, some of these other things they've done in the nuclear area, how cavalier they are and how out of control they can be, it doesn't surprise me at all. I can't say for sure, but if you look at knowing a little bit about the electronics of it and that, about how HAARP would actually interface with things like chemtrail emissions, I can understand how that could be used to play these kind of games. They even admit that they are doing. I mean, the Canadian government admits it. If our government admits it or not, that how that goes. But anyway, it wouldn't surprise me. Let me put it that way.
Yeah, I think there's a better chance that we have little green men in captivity at Area 51. But
I don't know about that. But see, that's how they deflect. That's how they obviously.
All right.
That's how it works.
All right. Have a good day. Take care.
Okay, Tom. Take care.
845-1100 is the number. I think we have some callers holding, but we're going to take a quick break. You're listening to the Morning Call. We'll be right back. Just hang in there for a couple of minutes, folks. Thanks. All right. Why don't we do this? Why don't we go right back to the callers since we have callers waiting? We'll go back to the callers and we'll do an update on traffic and weather in a few minutes. Good morning. You're on the air. Hello. Good morning. You're on the air.
Oh, sorry about that. Hey, I just had to call you back. You know when you mentioned Michael Dell with the $6.2 billion contribution?
Yes.
That's the exact same thing that your boy Dave from Lily White Miller Beach called in about. They hate Trump no matter what. Michael Dell's a huge supporter of Donald Trump. He loves the guy. There's nothing Trump can do that Democrats are going to appreciate or like. The guy could cure cancer. They're gonna go, oh, it doesn't work. You know, they just hate the guy. That's all it's to it.
Well, here's what I don't understand.
Here's
what I don't understand. I've been getting text messages from Dave this morning, and he's claiming that the whole reason, the only motivation for the Golden Dome concept that Donald Trump came up with is because his son, Donald Trump Jr., is investing in basically in a fund that buys defense stocks. And to me, this is total nonsense because the book that I'm quoting was written in 2024. Annie Jacobson, by the way, certainly is a Democrat by all accounts, and her focus is largely that her book is written with Democratic and Republican input, but it's very clear that her that the influence of the book was pre-Donald Trump, and she's saying that we don't have these systems in place. We need these systems. She's largely making the claim that Donald Trump made earlier this year that we need to have up-to-date systems, and somehow, well, because Donald Trump Jr. has a fund that invests in things like SpaceX and some of the companies that would benefit from that system, that we shouldn't do this. I mean, Leon Panetta is a Democrat, inside and out. And Leon Panetta is one of the leading people quoted in this book saying we need better systems because the systems we have are just a disaster, and it's not going to stop any nuclear war, and it's not even going to give us the correct information and the correct data that we need. And I don't get it. I'm at a loss on this one.
Yeah, they're just Trump haters. I mean, there's nothing to it.
No.
They're just excuse-making morons. I mean, they're the same guys that stood around for 25 years and said, oh, no, we trust Russia. They'll never do what they're going to do. They're just talking. Now we're stuck in an idiotic war between Russia and Ukraine, and not a single person in Europe picks up a weapon to help them out. And they're right on their doorstep.
Well,
and
look,
here's the Democrats acting like morons as usual. It never ends.
Mike, we've got to move on. But my point earlier this morning was on Michael Dell and his wife Susan, is that they have bequeathed $6.25 billion for children and for newborns to create these funds. And you're right. This is a story that everybody should be pointing to and saying this is great. Whether the fact that they're friends of Donald Trump's or not, who cares for a minute? All right, let's forget that they're friends of Donald Trump and that Donald Trump somehow benefits from this because it happens during his watch. The fact is that there are millions of kids that are going to benefit from this, and we ought to celebrate that, the good side, and not always look for a negative. But I've got to move on because John Doherty's here, so I got to move on.
Well,
all right, got to move on.
Dave's
845-1100. We have another caller, one more caller, and John's going to come on in, but we'll take that caller very quickly. Good morning. You're on the air.
I forgot to mention to you, I know everybody isn't going to run out and grab this book that you're talking about.
Yep.
But what was her name again? Annie Jacobson, right?
Annie Jacobson, yes.
Yeah. So if anybody just wants to get the whole gist of the book without reading it, she's been on Joe Rogan, Sean Ryan. I've listened to hours of her. So just go into Joe Rogan podcast and type her name in, or Sean Ryan, and she'll lay out the whole book right there to you in the podcast.
And she's not trying to really state a Democratic view or a Republican view. She basically blames everybody for the problems that we have, correct?
Yeah, oh, I've watched hours of her. You couldn't tell if she was a Democrat, Republican, or an alien.
Well,
She don't
I
put
was
any
curious, so
politics out there at all.
I did a little background, and I see that she supported some Democrats before. But so what? I mean, she wrote a great book. That's the key. Hey, thanks again for calling.
Yep.
All right, John Doherty is here. John's coming in. We just took a break, so we gotta move on, and Jed's gonna have a side conversation. John, come on in. Put your headset on, and let's talk. Good morning. Oops, doing well this morning. Doing well. There you go. And let's make sure, John. There we go.
Can you hear me?
We got absolutely. How are you?
I'm terrific. Thanks for having me on.
I don't know if you caught the gist of the discussion. We're talking about just things in general, but I mentioned that I read a book over the last 2 days called "A Nuclear War: A Scenario." It was written in 2024 by Annie Jacobson. And it basically points out how screwed up we are when it comes to the chance of having an accidental all-out nuclear exchange. And it's just terrifying. And she wrote it with the help of former secretaries of defense, both from the Democratic side and the Republican side.
Uh-huh.
And they all point out that, what we think is in place to protect us isn't there. And that the Russians, who have as many nuclear weapons as we do, basically are relying on equipment that is so antiquated that it at times thinks that it'll read clouds as the contrails from nuclear missiles. And that's how scary it is, and that they have to keep on basically resetting the system because the system keeps on saying, you must now launch a retaliatory strike because the U.S. is sending in ICBMs, even though the U.S. isn't sending anything over.
Right.
And flocks of geese and all kinds of crazy stuff. It's terrifying. And so we were talking about that.
I do notice a couple of times where it was a single Russian officer that saved us from nuclear war.
We're going to talk about that next week. Mont Hanley's coming in 1983. Specifically, a Russian officer, and he's a colonel, by the way, saved us from nuclear Armageddon.
Yes, he did.
Yeah, it's very scary.
Yeah.
But we're here to talk about things that are a little bit more, close to reality right now.
Closer to home.
So, go ahead and start. I'll let you take the lead, and I'll jump in.
Well, the column this week was an appeal, my annual appeal to people to support two scholarship programs. One in memory of Paul Danko, who was an outstanding basketball and football official in Northwest Indiana, passed away more than 35 years ago when I was fairly new at Munster High School. He passed away during an Orama, the first basketball Orama, the only basketball Orama at the start of the basketball season. He collapsed refereeing that event at Munster High School. Shortly afterwards, a scholarship was started in his memory at PNW for students at PNW who might be interested in being referees or umpires. And that scholarship is permanently endowed and is awarded each year at PNW. There's information in the column. You can see it on the Times website about how to donate to that scholarship. The other individual memorial scholarship that I highlighted was the scholarship in memory of Joe Willis, who was an athletic trainer. He was a student athletic trainer for me at Munster High School, and then went on to Indiana University. While he was at Indiana University, they discovered he needed a heart transplant. He ended up having a heart transplant after he graduated. He was actually working for Powers Health, community healthcare system at the time, in our concussion clinic, and also as the athletic trainer at Morton High School. Had the heart transplant, came back, had some issues, had to go back in the hospital, had just earned his MBA. It was featured all over the country at the time that the graduation came to him at the University of Chicago while he was in the hospital with some rejection issues from the heart transplant. Was cleared to come back to work in December 8 years ago. He was back to work for 2 days and had started as the athletic trainer at Hammond Academy of Science and Technology. He was summoned to the basketball floor for an injured player. Ironically, it has something to do maybe with my column from a week before. A kid got smacked in the mouth and injured a tooth. Joe ran out on the court and collapsed and died.
Yeah, and again, I wasn't sure how to characterize your column because you talked about these two individuals and about the scholarships, but it kind of brings me to the point that we this time of the year there's a huge push on for people to give money.
Sure.
And I've brought this up on the air before, and you may not want me to go this way, but I'm going to, and that is that there are a lot of appeals out there. You need to be careful on what you're giving money to. And so giving money, my point is giving money to the scholarship funds that you're talking about, they're locally handled. There's, they have a local impact.
Right.
All right. And be very careful, folks, because everybody and their brother is out there, no offense, I'm going to pick on him since he walked in. The Jed Dietelo, good community fund sounds nice, but do you know the background of
the
it?
Human Fund, George Costanza's Human Fund?
Yeah, exactly.
Money for people.
It's the problem that you have. Some of these big charities that are out there right now. You want to do good. You see the heartbreaking commercials about dogs and cats being mistreated and all the others, the kids at hospitals, and some of those are very good organizations, but there are some that aren't. I mean, there's one that the what is it called, the United Fellowship for Christians and Jews, for example. That organization runs ads all day long and all night long on television right now, and if you dig deep, you find out that 90% of the money is being used for administrative
costs. Yeah. Well, the one thing I can assure you with the Joe Willis Scholarship, it's at Indiana University. That's fully endowed as well. And our first winner was 2 years ago. Was a young lady from Valparaiso. We've had winners from other parts of the country since. It's been awarded 3 times now. But that's money that's staying locally, and every penny that you donate to, whether it's PNW for the Danko Scholarship or to Indiana University for the Joe Willis Scholarship, fully goes to endowing those scholarships.
Yeah, and that money stays local, and you can trace where the dollars are being spent, I guess is my point.
Yes.
Again, I don't know, John, you've been involved with education for years. You've been involved with all kinds of situations that I was just shocked yesterday, and I've had a few people. Michelle Quinn, for example, a friend of mine, she's been trying to prove me wrong this morning and last night on Facebook. But I don't think that the announcement by the Dells, Michael and Susan Dell, gave $6.25 billion to help fund these funds for newborns between now and December 31st, 2028. I don't feel that it's gotten the coverage that it should have gotten. This is a great effort. I mean, this is something that could really make the difference for a lot of lives of young children. Of course, they can't access the money till they're 18. They'll probably have about $5,000 or so at that point. I think it's this wonderful opportunity to give, and it puts us in the right season. And unfortunately, the news media is still covering why Donald Trump had an MRI. I don't really care if he does. And MRIs are not that uncommon. In fact, those body scans are not that uncommon.
No, not anymore. I heard you talking. There was a conversation about the country of Canada before I got on the air, and it's fascinating to look at the number of MRIs in the United States and the number of MRIs in Canada. We probably have too many in the United States. They don't have enough in Canada.
Yeah.
It would be nice worldwide if we could find a balance where there was enough everywhere, but not too many.
Well, it's kind of like my discussion about nuclear weapons this morning, and the fact that we have these anti-ballistic missile systems that were supposed to be in the U.S., but we put them everywhere else, so they don't benefit us. I mean, again, it's a charitable time of the year, and people want to give, and people should give, and I encourage people to give. But I do want to point out, based on your column, that you are promoting a couple of very good scholarship funds that are locally controlled, locally they have obviously a local benefit.
Right.
And I'm not saying that everything that you give money to should only have a local benefit either. I'm just saying be careful on what you give to, because a lot of times some of those larger organizations are asking for dollars. Those dollars are not going for the intended recipients. They're going for administrative costs.
Yeah.
And that's a problem. So let me ask you this. We have we're getting to the point that we're almost at the playoffs.
I knew this was going to come up.
And you knew it was going to come. You're darn right you knew it was going to come up. So who do you think? I think it's safe to say at this point that Notre Dame ends up in the playoffs.
As long as Texas Tech beats BYU. If BYU beats Texas Tech, they both get in. Notre Dame will get bumped.
Yeah, that's true. That's true. That there's still there still is that possibility, but it looks to me like Notre Dame ends up
right now. It looks
Miami.
like Notre Dame will be the last team in, and they'd play Texas A&M. Miami's not going to get in.
You don't think Miami gets in?
Miami's out.
Okay.
And is that unfair to anybody that's a Miami fan? I would say, fortunately, not many around here, because I'm certainly not a Miami fan. But in all fairness, head to head, they beat Notre Dame, and people can say it was the start of the season and Notre Dame's been better since. You know me, I'm a big Notre Dame fan, but my answer to Notre Dame fans who would complain if Miami bumped us, because that still is a possibility.
It is, but I read a story this morning, actually, about 4 a.m. From USA Today, that basically their take was that Miami still had a chance to be in, and that Notre Dame would play Miami.
I doubt you would see Notre Dame play Miami because they'd both be bottom seeds.
Yeah, they were saying it would be a 9 and a 12 seed.
No, 8 would play 8 plays 9 right out of the gate.
Right, 8 plays 9, and then I don't know. Again, I was a little surprised.
8 plays
but
9, 7 plays 10, 6 plays 11, 5 plays 12.
Yeah, so I was a little surprised, but
I don't see how Miami gets all the way up to 8 or 9, or Notre Dame gets up to 8 or 9 at this point. If the playoff happened today, it would be Notre Dame, Texas A&M.
So let me ask you this: what do you think the chances are of IU upsetting Ohio State?
I reject the premise. It wouldn't be an upset.
Well, that's true, because number 1 playing number 2, and they're both.
If you look at common opponents, the only common opponent that Ohio State played better against than IU is Penn State. Every other common opponent, either it was pretty much the same, or there were 3 games where IU destroyed the opponent and Ohio State just beat them.
So I watched the Ohio State game this past Saturday, like a lot of people. I mean, it's snowing. It's a great day to watch football. Right. And they ended up, obviously, they finished the game. They were dominating.
Yeah, okay. They pulled away.
But they didn't look that strong at the very beginning. I mean, right. Michigan had some decent.
Michigan was a good team. They just not quite as good as Ohio State.
No, and at the same time, watching IU has had that. IU has been on a roll.
Yeah.
I mean, Cignetti just keeps them going. It's kind of nonstop. He doesn't back down. He's kind of a general, if you will. I mean, he just doesn't quit. And so I don't know. I think there's the possibility at least.
I haven't seen what the spread is. Is Ohio
State's favored? My son is going. My son is going to the game. My son is going to be there,
right.
in Indianapolis, and it'll be a great game.
Great game, great venue. I kind of envy him, Mike, but I've been to enough college football games this year. I'm going to sit this weekend out.
Well, I think you're right. Although it's supposed to be cold, so I have a feeling I'll be watching plenty of football games.
Right.
But I'm glad I wasn't at the IU Purdue game, for example.
Oh boy.
Yeah, that would have been brutal.
Yeah.
And actually, Ohio State Michigan looked pretty brutal too. I mean, it was snowing at parts of the game, so.
Notre Dame was fortunate to be out in the West Coast, although it was cool. It was cool in the Bay Area, from what I understand.
It was cool, but it wasn't nearly as
bitter
brutal.
Cold.
No, not at all. And of course, the other thing, and my wife for example, wanted to watch the game, and she's like, I'm not going to stay up that late. I mean, it was a 9:30 game, but you have to understand the game is originating in California, and so it's 7:30 out there. And
I stayed up till the end of the third quarter, and the game was well in hand.
I fell asleep. About the same time, the end of the third quarter, although I kept on waking up every 5 minutes checking my phone. And the fourth quarter seemed to drag because I know I woke up about 6 times checking my phone. It's like, oh, come on, just end it already. End it. But it's a good time of the year. Also, of course, lots of basketball, both high school level now and also college.
College. And my Fighting Irish had a big win last night against Missouri. They beat an undefeated Missouri team.
I'll tell you who surprised me. I watched their game the other day was Valparaiso versus Western Michigan. Western Michigan, much bigger school, historically draws a pretty decent group of players, and Valparaiso destroyed them.
Valparaiso's got a good coach.
Yeah, I mean they basically it was close. It was like 28 points, but I mean about 30 point difference by the end of the game, and that was pretty remarkable.
Yeah, we'll see let's see how Valparaiso does by the time we get to Arch Madness.
Yeah, that's well,
and I say Arch Madness,
right? Arch Madness because that's
right
down in St. Louis,
conference tournaments
right?
Down in
That's
St. Louis.
Conference tournament.
Yeah,
I'm just again, I was pleasantly surprised. Valparaiso was predicted to be a bottom feeder this year, and they're doing pretty well.
Go check them out because on top of everything else, the Athletic and Recreation Center out there at Valparaiso, great venue to watch it. Yeah, great venue to watch a basketball game.
And of course, the game was over the weekend, so you had the snow, you had the fact that the students were on break yet, so the arc was completely empty.
Oh, jeez.
There couldn't have been more than 200 people at that game.
That's too bad because, like I said, great place to watch a game.
Oh, absolutely. Yeah, especially if you sit on the seat back side.
Yeah.
I mean, those seat backs are great. Yeah. And they're reasonably priced, and it's a great game. But it was interesting because Valparaiso has a winning record. They're doing very well. They got knocked off by University of Kentucky, but University of Kentucky is going to
knock off everybody.
Yeah, right. I mean, they're a top-ranked team.
Yeah.
And then they lost one game last week to a team that they should have beat. But everybody has a bad night in basketball. That's for sure.
Yeah, you run into a hot shooter from another team, and and they're sticking shots you never expect. What are you going to do?
Yeah, and in that particular game, it wasn't the hot shooter from the other team. It was the poor shooting from Valparaiso.
Right, and then some nights you can't throw it in the ocean.
Yeah, and that was one of them. But again, once again. Always a concern about the potential for injuries and the potential for problems, especially with student athletes, and the need this time of the year to be conditioned and to be ready.
And one thing, in my column 2 weeks ago, one way to be ready to play basketball is please wear a mouthpiece.
A good point. Good point. I have a chipped tooth. A chipped tooth. Now I'm going to stick my tongue on all day long because you mentioned it, but it happened in basketball. Wow.
Yeah, LeBron James wears a mouth guard. Kevin Durant wears a mouth guard. Steph Curry wears a mouth guard. If they can wear a mouth guard, I don't understand why kids at the high school level, college players can't wear them. You can breathe fine with them. You can speak with them. Do you speak with a little lisp? If you leave it in, yes, you do. But if you're regardless, but in particular, if your parents have spent thousands of dollars on orthodontia, why would you risk damaging that? And dental injuries happen in basketball to people not wearing mouth guards all the time. If you have a mouth guard and you get elbowed in the mouth, you get a bloody lip. You don't have a mouth guard on, you're in the emergency room or the dentist's office the next day.
Yeah, it's such an easy way to avoid injury.
Yeah, right? It's cheap,
and it's a great suggestion, a great tip for basketball players. Some of the damage that you can do to your teeth again can be quite permanent.
It's permanent, and the damage happens instantaneously. Oh, I'm not going to get hit in the mouth. Oh, I hate to tell you, yes, you are.
Yeah, it never right, and again, you never totally recover from it. If it's a chip, if it's a crack. even if you end up with with a veneer or anything else to hide dead nerves, it never feels, it never
Right.
looks the same. So it's a good point. It's a really good point. So, well, my understanding is we have Lynette. We do have Think Parks is going to do a show today, so we've got to cut this short today. This is a little
We're
different.
coming up on 8 o'clock
Yeah,
anyway.
we're coming up on 8 o'clock. But there is also a call that we're supposed to have, and we don't have it yet. So I'm going to keep you around if you don't mind until we get to this call, because I promised a call this morning, not knowing that Think Parks. We're not totally sure how this happened, but it's WJOB, so stuff happens, folks. And by the way, at 8:30, don't forget we're going to have the Chamber of Commerce show, which is one of the longest serving community shows on WJOB. It's been around all the way back to the days of Irv Lewin.
And I remember
Irv Lewin,
those
the
days.
1970s. Yeah,
I remember those days.
Well, I remember them too because oddly enough, Irv Lewin and I knew Irv very well. We were friends, and Irv used to have me come on, and I was 18 years old when I joined the Chamber of Commerce, so I used to come on and do the show with him. So that's how I know its origins, because of my memories of Irv Lewin. So, again, this time of the year is also a time for a lot of individuals to start conditioning, start preparing for spring sports.
Sure.
Okay, track, baseball, softball, and once again, they need to take advantage of indoor facilities, because outside's going to be kind of dangerous. But if there was one thing that you would say to a student athlete right now that was conditioning for spring sports, what would it be?
I would, for spring sports, and let's focus on baseball for a second. If I was a pitcher, I wouldn't be picking up a baseball until after the first of the year. The issue with pitchers in particular is they throw too much and they burn their arms out. And there's a lot of talented baseball players through the years that should have made the major leagues that didn't, because they destroyed their arms at the high school level by trying to throw year round. The best thing, in my opinion, for a baseball player to do in the winter first is to play another sport. Don't play baseball. Play something else. And you can pick up the baseball. If you have the natural talent to throw a baseball well, that talent is going to just disappear while you're playing a sport in the winter or you're playing a sport in the fall. To this day, if you look at the really good baseball players who have long careers, you'll look and see that they played multiple sports at the high school level. So if you're not playing a sport right now and you're a baseball player, do not pick up a baseball until the start of the year. And work on your entire game instead of just throwing.
Point well taken. Well taken. There are too many. You're absolutely right. There are too many really good pitchers. I've seen a number of them myself who came up through different high schools in Northwest Indiana, who I said, wow, someday they're going to be in the majors,
right.
And they blow their arm out, and it just never
Tommy
works
John
out.
surgery, for years it's been advertised it works 90% of the time. No, it doesn't.
Yeah, it just does not. We don't have that call, so we're gonna go ahead and move on. We're going to take a quick break. When we come back, Think Parks is going to be on, and then at 8:30 we're going to come back, and it'll be the Whiting Robertsdale Chamber of Commerce show. So keep it tuned right here. We'll be right back after these commercial announcements with Think Parks.